We are going to go right to line one, and we're going to talk with Paul about fracking. Paul, how are you?
Pretty good.
Well, that's the main thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Now, Paul, I did have you on a program recently, and you are a member of the Libertarian Party, and I wanted you to tell us a little bit about what that party stands for.
The big thing the Libertarian Party stands for is liberty and freedom. The main pillars, of course, are personal property rights, a small government, getting government's hands out of things, being fiscally responsible, not wasting money, you're not taxing everybody to death and then wasting the money that you tax away, and accountability and transparency in government, because we believe that a government is the servant of the people and not the master, and as such, they should be doing the things that benefit the people. As the best way to describe it is they are the administrator of the public trust, and we are the trustees, and that's our trust are taken care of, and they should be doing the things that we want them to do, not the things that them and their buddies want them to do. So the whole idea of libertarians was a bunch of engineers and teachers and truck drivers that got really tired of all the lawyers sitting around spending their money and making their buddies rich and not doing the things that the people need. And we have libertarians in Ontario, we have a national party, and we're developing parties in every province as well, all under the same kind of brand and idea of liberty being essential, and having been taken from the people, we want to return that liberty back to the people.
Any interest in this province?
We do actually have interest in the province. We got a few people on the ground. Well, the first goal, of course, is to get the party registered now, and that's going to take 1,000 signatures. So we're going to get our people on the ground to go and get those signatures, and then once the party is registered, then we're planning for the next general election to run at least 12 candidates. And then the next goal after that, for the election after that, would probably be a full slate of candidates. For example, in Ontario, the last Ontario election, out of 107 seats, we ran 74 candidates, and we doubled the vote count that we had from the election previous. So people are getting the message of libertarians, and the beautiful thing is once people hear it, we don't have to sell people on it, we just have to tell them it's there, because it all makes sense.
So what about, did you say 12 candidates? Can we expect that one of the 12 might be in from an area of this province?
Well, so 12 candidates in Newfoundland in the next general election. For the federal election, we want to have at least one candidate in every province to be a truly national province. You'll have some provinces with more and some with less.
So you're hoping to run 12 provincially?
12, I'd like to see 12 provincially in the next provincial election. I know it's a big goal, but once people hear the libertarian platform, it all makes sense because it's all based on logic.
Well, that's where anybody, if they are interested, can check that out online. But we're going to talk a little bit about fracking. I had a geologist on earlier who gave us a good explanation of what it was about, and how to make it safe, and some of the dangers and pitfalls involved. And what are your thoughts on the whole thing?
He was correct. He mentioned the casing. They actually run several layers of casing down. They start at about 23 inches in diameter, and the final casing is actually about 5.5 inches, so it's steel and cement in multiple layers. But the big thing, the two things that are important, the science is one, and that'll be handled by the scientists. And the libertarians, we believe that we should tie the environmental cleanup to the profits, so that whoever is doing any kind of a job, whether it's mining or oil or whatever, they should be held responsible and compelled to pay for any cleanup that there is. And if they have to put up a bond or get insurance or whatever they have to do, that's how they'll do that. We also do believe in getting proper environmental assessments and in property rights. So nobody has a right to pollute anybody else's property or water. So that would be covered in that. The other thing about the fracking is, if you look at Pennsylvania, the Marcellus Shale, they have over 1 million fracked wells, and the EPA said there's not one incidence of groundwater contamination, all those million. And they do what's called zero discharge, where all the water they put in, and when it comes back, they take it back out, filter it, and reuse it. And they actually have tanks on site after the fracking is done, that as the oil's coming up, they will separate out any water that's still remaining from the fracking process for a couple of years after, as it comes out, and they will store that and again reuse that. But from the libertarian point of view, one thing that I want to look at, we had a wonderful fishery, and that got destroyed by foreign vessels and Ottawa doing nothing about it. And then we had a seal hunt, and that got destroyed by foreign countries and their sealing practices, and Ottawa doing nothing about it. And now we have an oil industry, and when we first got the oil, Ottawa tried to take that from us, and all the old-timers will remember we fought that in court and won. Now here we have the possibility of an oil industry on western Newfoundland, running from St. George's up to Grosse Morne there. We have a possibility of about $100 billion worth of business, because they say there's $23 billion underneath and about $1 billion immediately recoverable. Well, the people who should be deciding whether or not we drill and whether or not we frack and whether or not we develop that resource should be the people of Newfoundland and nobody else.
23 billion barrels of oil on the west coast of Newfoundland?
There's up to 23 billion barrels into shale, and there's about 1 billion recoverable. Well, that's a few years of work. That's $100 billion in business. They're talking jobs for St. George's, jobs for Stephenville and Mattis Point and Corner Brook. And we're not talking minimum wage jobs. These are oil jobs. Getting it fracked, getting it pumped out, and then all the infrastructure that will have to be built, and all the cargo, the shipping, the restaurants, the clothing stores, all that ancillary services will be there too. So there's a lot of oil there. That's big business, and the only people who should be deciding that are the Newfoundlanders, not Ottawa, not UNESCO. I mean, they had a meeting in Qatar, and you know Qatar is part of OPEC, and you know if we could subpoena bank accounts, we might be able to draw some connections there, other than the fact that we know Qatar is OPEC and the UNESCO was in Qatar, and now they're in Ottawa, and they're lobbying Ottawa to ban fracking along the west coast there.
So what is the connection you're trying to make here?
Well, why are they sticking their nose in? I mean, to me, OPEC sells oil, and if we sell a barrel of oil, that's a barrel of oil that they don't sell. And there's been a few people who have done some research tying OPEC and tying Russia into the anti-fracking and anti-oil that we've seen in Canada lately. I mean, we don't have the clear paper trail and money to be able to, point a finger, but, there's a bit of you can draw some private conclusions when you look at what's going on. And like I said, I don't want anybody making decisions about Newfoundland's economy except Newfoundlanders. If Newfoundland decides it doesn't want to frack, then that's Newfoundland's choice. And if they decide they want to develop that oil, that's their choice. And that's the libertarian idea. It's personal property and private property. That is that land, that oil, that resource, that all belongs to the people of Newfoundland and no one else. So they should be the one making the decision what happens with it.
But you're confident that, so it's your opinion that, and just for people who don't know what exactly OPEC is, North America is not associated with OPEC whatsoever.
Not at all. No, they're a group of oil producing exporting countries, which is what OPEC means, and it's a cartel. A cartel like that would not be allowed in Canada because it's the Competitions Act in Canada forbids companies getting together and setting prices, and really that's what they do. They get together and they set prices and they decide on production levels, etc. And like I said, when we produce oil, that's oil that they can't. So when you look at things like the Keystone Pipeline, and you look at the Northern Gateway Pipeline, that's Alberta oil getting to market. That if it doesn't get the market, then that means OPEC gets to sell that oil. So, they do have a financial benefit in hampering our industry. And, there's 1 billion barrels of oil that we can recover in Western Newfoundland. That's 1 billion barrels they don't get to sell. So if they could lobby Ottawa into preventing us from recovering that oil, well, that's 1 billion barrels that they get to sell.
Well, interesting stuff, Paul. Listen, it's great to get a chance to talk to you, hear a bit about your party. I'm sure people are going to be hearing a little bit about more in the future. 12 seats. It's a big undertaking, and let's see how it all shakes out for you.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. We'll have the website rolled out shortly. There is already a Canadian website and an Ontario website for the Libertarian parties. The platforms are remarkably similar. The only thing that's really different is specific issues, like, for instance, fracking on the West Coast. Well,
you know what? It's there's room for members of all parties to have a talk on the open line programs. Let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Okay, Paul. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Paul Break there with the Libertarian Party.